Construction across the bridge outside at all hours, trains going by, the dryer on constant rotation, tossing that change around that you forgot to take out of your pocket. And this doesn't even take into account the constant barrage of social media, little red notifications of people giving or taking validation at a moment's notice, starting controversies, the news always available in your pocket. Today's world is as stressed and as loud as it has ever been, and Ryan Holiday makes the claim that stillness is the key. Is he right? Let's find out. What up? This is Cody P with the Author Authority, and in today's video I've got a very special review of Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. Now, Ryan Holiday is one of my favorite authors. He was the protege / research assistant for Robert Greene, and I've got a review of Robert Greene's top 5 books right here. Robert Greene is pretty much my favorite author. He gives me clarity every time I read, but Ryan Holiday is kind of smaller, more bite-sized chunks that are applicable in pretty much any given moment. Today's video is extra special, however, because I'm going to be doing a giveaway of this signed copy, number 120 out of 300. So if you're interested in getting this signed copy, stay tuned to get details on how. So, is stillness the key? 2019 it is right now, and the world is as busy as ever. Well, let's start with what is stillness. I'm gonna elaborate kind of in my own words here that there's not just one time for stillness, but two, which is the span of all times. There is at the bottom of the spectrum, when everything's quiet, when it's the middle of the night, if you can't sleep, if you are by yourself with only your thoughts and your own emotions, can you find stillness? Now, a lot of books, a lot of self-help gurus kind of consider meditation or their version of stillness to be the absence of thoughts, the space between thoughts, where you just shut your mind off and you kind of stop thinking a little bit. But our brain is meant to think, and Ryan Holiday makes the claim that the opposite is true, actually. Rather than being absent of thought, it's thinking so deeply that you're entrenched in nothing but the current moment, the current task. And I elaborate a little bit on that in this review of Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and I think that's how you say it. He says it in his own audiobook, where basically flow state is concentrating so deeply on any given moment that it consumes you, and in a good way. You're not distracted by frivolous activities. So the two times when there would be stillness is at the bottom here, when it's silent, when you're left to yourself, when you've only got your own thoughts. And can you remain still during that time? Can you remain in deep thought? Are you still okay during that time? Or do you have to find some kind of constant distraction? Do you have to look at your phone or text a friend and go on social media? Do you have to play a video game? Anything that is an escape rather than a productive pastime or a scheduled time for frivolousness, a hobby. If you're doing it to escape, you're not still. Then on the other side of the spectrum here, we've got the high end of things. In loud environments, in temperamental situations where stress runs rampant, can you remain calm-headed and handle the situation at hand? Can you see deeply and cut through the chaos and remain still, be unaffected from within, even though the world around you is in spinning dire straits? So I've got kind of 3 points here from this book that Ryan Holiday says. And my favorite number 1 quote straight away that I want to take from this is, "Slow is smooth and smooth is fast." Now, I'm the type of person who, when I'm typing, if I'm in some kind of Facebook argument or if I'm trying to finish something quickly, I usually type really, really inaccurately, and I find myself trying to go fast, but because of that, I'm constantly hitting the delete button. I'm constantly resculpting. Or if I'm working on a new painting, if I'm practicing it, I will just slap paint on the background and I'll have to go back and readjust. And by that time, the paint is so thick that it actually takes longer to dry than had I just done it right the first time. So I've been, in the context, one of the first things Ryan Holiday says in this book, and it actually took me until my second read through to really get the grip on this, is that The leader's job is to actually slow down the situation and calm down his followers or subordinates, coworkers, to be able to make them calm and to handle whatever situation is going on, if it's an argument or if time is of the issue at work. And I have been on the receiving end of this where, you know, I make milk for a living. We fill these 16,000 gallon silos for the entire Midwest. But if you put one wrong drop in there, if you push the wrong button, you can spray milk everywhere, get chemical in the line, and boom, it's no good. That's money down the drain. That's profits out the door. And that comes out, it doesn't come out of your pocket, but you know, it definitely doesn't increase your pocket to make the company broke. And so it gets really high stress. And when the leader of my trainer can slow me down and say, okay, now why did the line divert? I thought so, that would do it. So did you do this afterwards? Did you remember to make that happen? Okay, now where's it gonna go after you do that? And so when you can get clarity out of these situations, when you can slow down and ask what is gonna be the byproduct of this action, I think it can be really helpful. You can actually get it done right the first time. And then the second thing is I have been the leader in these situations. When I was teaching painting classes, we had an 80-person event, and it was a pretty big room, sold out class. And at the end, there was a group of ladies who came in late. Some of them weren't even on the roster, they weren't even on the paper, and they all wanted to be able to sit together. Well, all the seats were taken, and some of them didn't even have names on the list. And so rather than getting upset and taking it out on the customer or allowing them to overwhelm me with their requests and demands, it was more like, hey, I know you're here to have a great time. I'm here to have a good time. We're all just trying to work together. Let's figure out where we can get you sat, and I'm gonna look up on the computer to see if you guys are here too. But I have to tend to these 80 people while I'm at it, so give me a little bit of time. Because I was able to do that, the class went really smoothly. They ended up getting to sit together. We had to fandangle a few things, but it's all right. We live in the world. There's no rules. You just need to be still, make it happen as effectively as possible. Bringing me to my second point of this book, this is obviously not a quote from the book. Ryan Holiday isn't above swearing or anything like that, but I'm gonna use this crude example. I think I learned it from the Real Social Dynamics boys, but it's applicable in all areas of life. I'm gonna tell you a story. The story of the young buck versus the old bull. And this will illustrate it nicely. The young buck looks at the old bull atop their hill. He says, "Old bull, let's run down there and fuck a heifer." And the old bull looks at the young buck calmly and says, "No, young buck, let's walk down there and fuck them all." So that's a pretty crude story, but it illustrates the point really well. Is like if you're constantly rushing through, I mean, you'll probably get the job done. You might get one, but if you take your time and do it effectively, you can accomplish the whole thing. That's been really, really helpful for me because I'm trying to learn a new job right now, and I've got quite a few clients, and I'm trying to maintain this YouTube channel. For me, it's going to be really beneficial so that I'm not constantly looking for shortcuts. You know, I was cutting down an interview piece that was an hour and a half long of take after take after take after take. It was a pretty rusty session. And so I was looking for the shortest ways to cut this down, like, oh, how can I make this faster? How can I go faster? Instead of listening to what the interviewee was saying and just picking out the good parts, I was constantly having to go back and forth and compare instead of just being sure. And that was an hour and a half of cutting and going back and forth on just the timeline itself, let alone how many times I had to watch the footage. So if I would have slowed down and really just gotten it right the first time, instead of having that young buck energy of just wanting to run through it and get on to the next thing, I recommend being the old bull and slowing down, just getting it right the first time. Ryan Holiday has several different examples of this. Third most impactful thing in this book for me was kind of his chapters on both Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. Now, these are two of the highest achieving athletes of all time. Michael Jordan, unless LeBron has surpassed him, I don't think anybody has more rings than Michael Jordan, and Tiger Woods is exponentially like the best golf player. Ryan Holiday goes out of his way to bring up the beginning of Tiger Woods' past and how he started playing golf at only the age of 3, how he was able to outperform his dad, outdrive his dad by like 7 or some ridiculous young number. But his father was relentless on him, and not just in a disciplined sensei way, but he would always keep hammering in on him, and they had actually a safe word. That safe word was enough. But apparently throughout his entire career, Tiger Woods never said enough. He always wanted more and more, and it was his only way to validate himself against that kind of overlording father figure. And you would think that because he became the best in the world at his sport, that Tiger Woods found stillness. And maybe to a degree he had when he was in the sport alone, but it messed with his entire love life, his family, his children. He had more affairs than pretty much anybody in the world, which sounds cool in theory, but in practice it'll tear apart your personal life. And the entire media was after him for it was quite a while. I remember that. It was a big deal when I was a kid. And Ryan Holiday says that this isn't actually stillness, because long-term relationships are one of the keys to happiness. If you're constantly pushing away or recycling people because they're not good enough for your cause, then you yourself are going to be unhappy. And what are you compensating for? And then in the second example of Michael Jordan, he recalls a speech from Michael Jordan's acceptance to the Hall of Fame. And he basically most of this time talks about all the people that did him wrong. He was like, yeah, coach, remember that time you wouldn't bring me into the game? Well, take that. Like, here I am now, huh? Or that guy who took, I don't remember the other athlete's name, but somebody took his spot on a team that Michael Jordan almost made it to. Well, what he didn't say is that Michael Jordan was a freshman and the other guy was a senior and much taller at the time. He was more qualified. And so Michael Jordan took these things to heart, and a lot of his top performance of his career was actually out of spite, out of pushback for people who told him that they couldn't. That kind of makes me take a step back for just a second here, because Eminem is like my favorite artist of all time, let alone rock and roll, let alone painting. I mean, any kind of art, photography, I would prefer to consume Eminem. But the thing is I look back and, he's always preaching these terrible, seductive relationships of never being sure what the other person's thinking and always cheating on each other. And he glorifies that kind of lifestyle. And the same thing of he's always been the underdog, and he uses that as his fuel. He almost needs people to hate him or to tell him that he can't in order to actually accomplish something. Ryan Holiday says that this is not stillness either. If you've read any of other Ryan Holiday books, like Ego is the Enemy or The Obstacle is the Way, or The Daily Stoic even, which is probably my favorite book of his, you'll know that he always constantly references the ancient Greeks and in between religions as well. He's got quite a few mentions of Buddhism and a couple mentions of even Christ in this book. If you want more of his kind of classical examples and more thought out versions, he talks about JFK, John F. Kennedy, during the Cuban Missile Crisis and how he was able to find stillness for weeks on end and ultimately ended up kind of saving the world in a way. I still recommend reading this book. My review, especially today's review, is in my own words, and I still recommend highly that you pick up this book so you can reference it during pretty much any situation that you're in. Since reading this book, I've found more success at work and being able to slow down, and even more success kind of in conflict. I've always had a little bit of this. My pops raised me pretty well in being level-headed when it comes to stress, duress, and conflict, but I think this book is an excellent resource for anybody struggling with it or anybody who wants to get better at it as well. Do you want to win a signed copy of Stillness is the Key? I've got one right here and it's got your name on it. Well, actually it has Ryan Holiday's name on it. But if you want this Ryan Holiday signed copy, here's what you need to do. I'm going to do it a little bit differently because I want some engagement. I've got a really small community right now. There's not a whole lot of people reading this book. It's not #1 on Amazon, and my own channel is pretty small as well, so I need more engagement from you. If you want to win this, not only like and subscribe to the video, but drop a comment down below why you want this book. And I'm going to pick the best reason why, subjectively. So I'm going to choose this. I accept the responsibility of picking it. If it's another author and you desperately want to get into Ryan Holiday, that's an acceptable reason. If you're getting in to a lot of stress at work, you need to chill out, or that's a great reason. If it's something within your relationship and you want to remain more cool-headed, another fantastic reason. These are just examples. Don't use my examples unless they're 100% true for you, because I want to know. So even if 2 people comment on there, I have to pick between you 2, and somebody's going to win this book regardless. So like, subscribe, drop a comment as to why, And hey, this is Cody P with the Author Authority. Thanks so much for tuning in. Should I do a Ryan Holiday top 5 review? I think I will. I've read most of his books. All right, cheers. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.